right, I am here with Evie's butt to talk about the Avengers. This is a couple days late from when the story broke, and yet it's not like there's a ton of stuff going on with Avengers at any given time. So I figured it was still okay to circle back to this a couple days later because this remains a community controversy. And at the time I'm recording this, the best I can tell, Crystal Dynamics has not issued any kind of response to the pushback as to what's happening here. More or less, we are in a microtransaction controversy, which we don't see too often in gaming anymore. I think the height of this was the craze that had everyone putting loot boxes in their games, and that is toned down to a certain extent outside of some games, which sort of grandfathered that practice in, FIFA Ultimate Team, Overwatch, stuff like that. But generally speaking, we haven't gotten into too many of these recently. Why this is a big deal with Avengers is because they have started selling consumable boosts, which are all listed behind me in the store here, that give you XP boosts, they give you materials boosts, and in effect, this is selling power. I mean, not in effect, it is literally selling power since they introduced especially the new Paragon system, which if you upgrade it all the way, which you have to do with XP, it's just like a flat 15% bonus for pretty much every stat that you can have in your character, and it does make a difference. In addition to making the 1 to 50 leveling process a lot faster. And then materials, if those are boosted, that gives you a way to upgrade gear more easily and more quickly. They introduced these boosts a while ago, but for a long time they were pretty much free. You would log in and get a free XP booster every week. It was just sort of a login reward. Then they started putting them in bundles with skins. So it's like, okay, you get a skin, you get a bonus free booster. Now there's just literally a row of these on the store ranging from a couple bucks to I think the max one is $5 for a week of 1.5x XP. So two things here. First of all, I do not like any game selling power, like unless that is sort of just the genre in general. Like, so you have Genshin Impact. There's loot boxes for powerful characters. It's a gacha game. Like, we can debate gacha as a genre, but this is a different genre. This is looter shooters, even though, looters in general. This is Diablo, Borderlands, Destiny, Division, that kind of stuff. And just selling kind of flat boosts like this, which directly translate into faster leveling, more power like that, is a big no-no, and this is why you almost never see this happen. The second controversy here is that Crystal Dynamics explicitly said that this would not happen in the past. There are a number of instances in terms of when they kind of reference the fact that they would not be selling power or pay-to-win elements. So at the E3 debut in 2019, there was a woman who was literally on stage who said that their microtransaction store would not have loot boxes or, quote, pay-to-win scenarios. And then there are other listings when the cosmetic store debuted, they said that it explicitly was for cosmetics. When boosters came, there was a note about them coming, and they said that you could get one for free, and they would think about other ways for you to earn them in the future. That part didn't say they would never charge for them, and yet past statements they made very much said that this was not something they were going to do. I guess we're sort of getting into a semantics debate here about what constitutes pay to win in a PvE game. Like, can you ever truly win a PvE game where you're not competing against other players directly? You could argue no, so maybe they're not technically breaking their word, and yet I consider anything that is directly selling power like this, which this is, to be a pay-to-win element, pay for power, pay-to-win. That is the same to me, essentially. There's an additional factor here that some people are riled up against. I don't know what I think of this yet. Before they introduced boosters, they nerfed XP gains in the game. And people are saying that like this was like a deceptive thing, that they were laying the groundwork for eventually charging for XP boosters, and they knew this was coming, and they gave this excuse of like, oh, people are leveling up too quickly, and it's too confusing to unlock too many skills too quickly, so this is why we're nerfing XP. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not 100% sure that was definitely the plan. I also don't think XP gains got nerfed by like that much. Like, I have done the 1 to 50 leveling for Hawkeye and Black Panther after that nerf went into effect, it was still really fast. It was still very, very fast. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. Maybe, I mean, it depends, because now they're every so often, like for an entire month, they're running a 4x XP boost. So it's kind of hard to judge the overall state of XP in the game when half the time they're running an XP boost anyway. These boosts kind of stack on top of the XP boost. So I think a 4x XP boost becomes a 4.5x XP boost with the booster. So it's something, but like it's not 600% like I thought it was. I think that's kind of debatable whether or not that was the plan all along. The sense I am getting here is that this is, without question, sort of a Square Enix directive. Marvel's Avengers has sold better than you think it has. It is one of the top-selling NPD games of the year, the only original game that is not a sequel or not a remake to do that, which is impressive in its own right. And yet, it is not a game that has a very good money-making system. They promised all of the expansion content and new characters would be free. So all they are left with is selling cosmetics to make money. And like once you have a favorite skin or two, it's easy to see how people might just stop buying those. So one good way I thought they were starting to drive more revenue was to introduce all these MCU accurate comic skins. And those were really, as far as I can tell, those were really big sellers. And they have kept rolling those out very quickly, and those do pretty well in the cosmetic store. But my guess is there was another directive from Square Enix to have additional sources of revenue, which is why they put these boosters in the game to try and sell those for additional stuff. The game also just went on Game Pass, so I think they're trying to grab some of the new people who don't know how the game has operated before this, being like, oh, they sell boosters, like this is just a thing that the game does. So all these millions of new players are potentially opened up to that. I know enough about game dev where like the actual developers of the game are never really looking for ways to just jam in more microtransactions to their game. It is the executives that run the studio usually, or more likely it is often the overall publisher who expects a certain return, who expects certain revenue generation, and that's how this happens. So I don't think no one should be harassed over this. Like, we can talk about it, we can discuss why it's bad, but like especially do not go after like Crystal Dynamics devs for this. That is, you're barking up the wrong tree with that in the first place. Not that like any individual should be harassed for this, but I do think we need to talk about it. And they just sort of dropped it in the weekly update here. They're just like, oh, by the way, we're selling cosmetics now. If you're doing this, so first of all, like, you went back on your word, and it really, really bothers me when you can just sort of catch a developer in a lie. This happened a lot with Cyberpunk, where they literally said before launch that the last-gen versions of the game were running surprisingly well, and then later, after launch, they said that they simply didn't see like many of the bugs that people were experiencing in their tests, and like both of these are impossible. Like, there was no plausible situation where they're not lying there. Here, I mean, maybe they forgot the exact wording of what they said. Maybe they think that this is not pay to win necessarily, so they're not. But like, regardless, like, to me, this is going back on their word. It is interpreted as them going back on their word, and A, they shouldn't do it in the first place, and B, they need to address this and like talk with the community about why they did this, like why they thought or they don't think it's as big of a deal as it's imagined to be, and or why they need the revenue so badly that they're doing this. Like, you got to be at least some level of transparent here, and there has been nothing at all from what I can tell when I'm recording this here that they have responded in any meaningful way. I guess I can check Reddit and see if there's anything that they've posted since then, but like, this just arrived and just sort of was dropped in everyone's lap. The community freaked out about it. They're still freaking out about it because there's no actual response. Granted, now it's the weekend, and maybe they're just kind of taking some time to collect themselves, but this is bad. You can't sell this kind of stuff in this kind of game. I do not think that is something they can continue doing. We can talk about the XP nerfs and this and that, and maybe those should be reverted and whatever, but you can't just start selling literal power boosts like this, or XP boosts, or materials boosts, or things like that. It's just, it's not going to fly, and it is currently not flying, as we can see here. And for all the, this was supposed to be like a good period for Avengers. Like, they've been releasing, Black Panther was well received. They announced Spider-Man by the end of the year. They announced 2022 content that was greenlit that they are making. They came to Xbox Game Pass, which everyone was hoping they would do forever, and the game has been very successful there. I think it was, the last I looked, it was a top 5 played Xbox game, which is very impressive. And there was a lot of good free content to consume. They're selling these MCU skins. Like, all the news was good up until this, and this is kind of affecting the veteran player base the most because they've been there from the start and they feel kind of taken advantage of now, and they can see how new players are trying to be taken advantage of too. So I do not think this is like a developer level decision. I think this game is not really set up to be a great revenue generator post-launch with just only skins to rely on, because they have promised they cannot sell characters or cannot sell DLC. And then if they did that, that would be going back on their word in a different department. So I would almost rather have them do that. I would rather pay like $10 for a character than have them feel like they're forced into a system where they have to sell power to survive, because that's just going to make everything terrible for everyone on every level. So don't do that. We'll see what happens next week with this, and if they stop doing this by the time the next store rotation comes around. I kind of think they will after this. I doubt these were some massive sales drivers anyway. That seems very unlikely to me, but we'll see what happens. So don't harass people, but this does suck and should be called out as sucking, which is why I'm trying to do that here in a more rational manner. But I understand why the community player base is so mad, and this is definitely contrary to things they've said in the past. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.